He's kind of made a name for himself outside of acting, and it really positions his mission being somebody who...
This isn't just a fluffy celebrity feud. The actual story is, I think, a lot darker.
Imagine waking up to find that a Hollywood A-lister, someone adored by millions, is quietly fighting to get their hands on your most personal information. Not because you broke the law, not because you're famous, but because you posted something online they didn't like. Sounds unreal, right? Well, it's not. It began quietly, almost invisibly. Not with a splashy headline or a televised press conference, but with a stack of legal documents slipping into the system like a whisper. Subpoenas.
So I just spent the last 5 days going through every single filing in the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively saga.
Not the kind aimed at corporations with deep legal departments, but at something far more unexpected. Everyday content creators. People with small audiences, some barely out of their teens, others juggling their day jobs and their side passions online. None of them were in the middle of lawsuits. None of them were accused of defamation. Most weren't even saying anything outrageous. They were simply discussing a high-profile case that had already spilled into the public eye.
I just want to say, God, first of all.
Then came the shocker. Buried in the legal language was a request for what was described as basic information. But basic in this context meant bank account numbers, credit card information, and even IP addresses. The kind of details that in the wrong hands could open the door to someone's entire personal and financial life. And the name behind the request? Blake Lively, Hollywood icon, adored by millions and armed with a legal team that could take on anyone.
If you've been online lately, you've probably seen that Blake Lively filed a complaint against her. It Ends With Us co-star and director Justin Baldoni.
Suddenly, the question wasn't about who was right or wrong in the court of public opinion. It was about whether private citizens had the power or the money to protect themselves when a celebrity decided to look their way. At first, the subpoenas weren't even addressed directly to these individuals. Platforms like TikTok were the real targets. But when those platforms notified creators that their personal details would be turned over unless they acted fast, everything changed.
Has the ability to end a cycle that they didn't ask for. We can all say it ends with us in our life.
For most, hiring an attorney to fight a subpoena from a celebrity was unthinkable. The cost alone could bankrupt them. And yet, the alternative was handing over the keys to their privacy without so much as a question. The balance of power was so one-sided it barely looked like a contest. It was David versus Goliath, except this time, David wasn't even sure if picking up a stone was worth it. On paper, the subpoenas looked like just another step in a complicated lawsuit.
Joe. No, hey, Joe. Definitely not Joe. My name is Jeff.
Just I just saw a TikTok on you.
Lawyers file motions, gather evidence, and demand records. It's all part of the process. That's how it was framed publicly. Standard procedure, nothing to see here. But if you looked just a little closer, the situation started to feel different. This wasn't a broad sweep aimed at uncovering anonymous trolls or coordinated smear campaigns. These were pinpointed strikes, and the people on the receiving end weren't all activists or critics or troublemakers.
Girls don't just sue people for sexual harassment for funsies. You think it's more likely that, she's worried about
Some weren't even opinionated about Blake Lively at all. They were commentators who stuck to court filings, podcasters who simply read documents on air, or TikTok creators summarizing legal jargon in plain English. And yet, somehow, they found themselves pulled into a legal fight they never signed up for. The explanation was simple enough on the surface. Lively's team wanted basic information from the platforms these creators used. But basic turned out to be a strange word for bank account details.
Look in Lily's bedroom
On her wall, there's a poster. I'm not going to say what it's of, but you'll see
Credit card numbers and IP addresses. Those aren't the kind of things you request lightly. And the more people talked about it, the more another theory began to take shape. Maybe this wasn't about information gathering at all. Maybe it was about control. Maybe it was about sending a quiet warning to anyone watching that speaking too loudly or too often about this case could land you in the legal crosshairs of someone who could afford to make your life very, very expensive.
I wanted the scene with Lillian Ryle that takes place in the hospital room.
That's when the whispers began, first on private group chats, then on Reddit threads, then in live streams where creators swapped notes. Had anyone else noticed the accounts suddenly defending Lively? Not casual fans, but people with platforms of their own, producing video after video, brushing off the subpoenas as harmless. Some swore these defenders were acting independently. Others claimed they were being fed talking points, if not directly, then through mutual contacts.
Yeah. I've heard you speak about what you're hoping for women to receive from it, and you've talked about the countless...
The word plants started popping up in conversations. The idea that Lively might have her own small army of influencers, ready to steer the conversation in her favor whenever needed. And then came the most curious part. A handful of creators privately claimed they'd been approached, not with threats, but with offers. An early look at new filings, a tip about an upcoming court date, a chance to interview someone close to the case. The catch? Their coverage had to be balanced.
Jesus, you're serious?
Yeah.
Oh, please. Oh my God, please. I'm so sorry.
Maybe even leaning toward a softer tone on Lively herself. Whether these claims were fact, fiction, or something in between, they spread fast. And once that seed was planted, every glowing defense of Lively's actions started to look suspicious. Was it all just organic public opinion, or was there something more strategic happening behind the scenes? As the subpoenas made their way through the system and whispers spread about possible behind-the-scenes influence, the mood in the creator community began to shift.
I see fireworks, and I realize it's probably, visions of fireworks, but that's how
At first, many stayed silent, hoping the storm would pass them by. But silence didn't always mean safety. Some creators started getting direct messages from their platforms, warning them that their data could soon be handed over. Others found themselves fielding calls from journalists who had somehow learned they were connected to the case, even if they'd never publicly mentioned their involvement. For those targeted, the financial and emotional toll hit fast. Fighting a subpoena isn't just a matter of sending an email, it's hiring a lawyer, paying for filings, and in some cases,
what you're thinking about that, processing it, navigating it. It doesn't involve you, but because you're in the cast, I'm wondering what you're thinking.
Traveling for court appearances. Most of these creators didn't have that kind of money. And while Blake Lively's team could spread the cost across a top-tier law firm, an individual creator had to weigh every dollar spent against rent, groceries, and bills. Even if they won, they could lose financially. Then came the backlash, not from Lively's team, but from parts of the public. Some accused the creators of exaggerating the threat, calling them drama chasers, trying to stir up clicks.
Titled I'm Done Trying to Be Man Enough. Now, not long after this, Justin wanted to make a movie addressing the negative effects of toxic masculinity, but didn't have any source material.
Others mocked them for thinking they could stand against a Hollywood heavyweight. And for every voice raising legitimate privacy concerns, there was another dismissing the whole thing as nothing more than a celebrity protecting her image. The conflict didn't just pit Lively's camp against her critics. It fractured the creator community itself. Friendships strained, collaborations dissolved. Longtime allies found themselves on opposite sides of the debate, with one side insisting this was a fight for online freedom and the other claiming it was just another internet overreaction.
It's not a good look for Ryan Reynolds, who is married to Blake Lively, so he is allegedly furious. And if the deposition does become public...
The legal battle might have been happening in courtrooms, but the social battle was raging in comment sections, live stream chats, and private group DMs. For weeks, the battle lines had been drawn. On one side were those defending the subpoenas as a standard legal step. On the other were the critics warning that this was an overreach, a dangerous precedent that could intimidate anyone who dared to speak publicly about powerful figures. The arguments had become familiar, almost predictable.
In humiliation, embarrassment, belittlement, frustration, and mental anguish.
And then, seemingly out of nowhere, the fight took a sharp turn. Wayfair, one of the central parties tangled in the lawsuit, filed a blistering response that didn't just reject Blake Lively's latest move. It dissected it with surgical precision. The focus of the clash was Lively's motion to strike certain court documents, specifically a deposition transcript. But Kevin Fritz, the attorney for Wayfair's side, came prepared. In his letter to the judge, he argued that Lively's request wasn't even allowed under the federal rules of civil procedure.
What kind of person we're dealing with here? What makes you think that any part of Blake Lively is coachable?
Those rules, he reminded the court, only permit certain pleadings to be struck. Things like complaints, answers, and counterclaims, not exhibits filed alongside them. A deposition transcript, he noted pointedly, wasn't something the rules allowed her to erase simply because she didn't like its existence. Then came the deeper cut. Fritz highlighted the irony that the transcript she wanted removed contained her own sworn testimony, her words, given voluntarily under oath.
It is the routine of the court to consider deposition testimony in connection with the discovery disputes. It is not.
If she truly believed it should remain private, she had a straightforward option. Request it be kept under seal. That path was open to her, and the judge had already shown a willingness to protect sensitive documents. But trying to have it deleted entirely, that, he implied, wasn't about privacy. It was about narrative control. It was about making sure the public never read the parts of her testimony that didn't match her story.
The absolute best headline ever written when they said Candace Owens subpoenas herself live. But I gotta say, Perez Hilton, this...
And Fritz didn't stop there. He dismantled Lively's claim that Wayfair had leaked the deposition to the media, pointing out she had offered no proof. He reminded the court that any number of people, including her own lawyers, legal assistants, and even catering staff, had been present and could have been the source. The implication was clear. The accusation against Wayfair wasn't backed by evidence. It was a convenient finger-pointing exercise. Observers didn't miss the subtext. This wasn't just a legal rebuttal, right? It was a public challenge to Lively's credibility.
Lively. Now, I don't feel the need to tell you guys what to think because you're the jury, this is a courtroom, let's just go through the evidence.
By bringing the issue into the open and methodically undercutting her arguments, Wayfair's team had flipped the script. Instead of focusing on the supposed harm caused by the deposition, the conversation shifted to why Lively was fighting so hard to bury her own testimony. Was it embarrassment, strategy, or was there something in those pages that could undercut the very foundation of her claims? For those watching from the sidelines, the moment was electrifying. It armed her critics with fresh talking points, left her defenders scrambling to reframe the situation.
Okay, pause and read this, because it explains everything.
And injected a fresh jolt of drama into a case many thought was slowing down. The stakes were suddenly higher, not just for the outcome of the lawsuit, but for the court of public opinion, where reputations could rise or fall with a single filing. The shockwaves from Wayfair's filing hit faster than anyone expected. Within hours, legal commentary channels were scrambling to put out emergency live streams, scrolling through the response line by line while viewers spammed the chat with theories.
Regarding the subpoena to the Liner Friedman firm. In short, the motion to quash was granted.
Clips of Kevin Fritz's sharpest points The procedural takedown, the reminder that the deposition contained Lively's own sworn words, were replayed and dissected as if they were explosive sound bites from a political debate. For Lively's critics, it was pure ammunition. They framed the move as proof that her fight wasn't just about protecting her privacy, but about controlling exactly what the public could see and hear about her. The reaction online wasn't uniform, but it was intense. In the creator community, the divide...
YouTube content creators that are obviously making content surrounding the Blake Lively versus...
already deepened by the subpoena drama, became a canyon. Those who had been defending Lively faced a sudden wave of pushback. Their comment sections filled with viewers accusing them of ignoring the implications of the filing, or worse, of running cover for a celebrity trying to rewrite the public record. Some doubled down, insisting nothing about the filing was unusual, calling it a standard part of litigation. Others went conspicuously silent, abandoning the topic in the hopes the backlash would fade.
I hadn't seen a picture. Seems like a lovely fella.
But on the internet, silence often speaks louder than words. The ripple effect extended beyond social media. Mainstream gossip outlets, which had mostly painted Lively as the target of harassment and smear campaigns, began shifting their language. Headlines started to feature words like aggressive, unusual, and even desperate when describing her legal tactics. Entertainment blogs that had once run glowing coverage now raised eyebrows over why a high-profile actress would go to such lengths to keep her deposition from public view.
23rd of 2025, so really soon. So let's talk more about Wayfair's response about the protective order. So Wayfair's...
especially when the judge had already offered her the option to keep it sealed without erasing it entirely. The implication was unavoidable. There must be something in that transcript she didn't want seen, and this was exactly the battlefield Wayfair's team seemed to want. In high-profile litigation, every public filing can double as a PR grenade, timed to explode in the court of public opinion as much as in the courtroom itself. For Lively's lawyers, the challenge had now shifted. It wasn't just about winning motions or protecting client privacy.
So why the reach for 2.5 years was nice to see the judge really sort of acknowledge that. This is the part I'm looking.
It was about stopping the steady drip of doubt seeping into the public's perception of their case. Every new document risked becoming a viral talking point. Every argument could be clipped, quoted, and turned into a headline that reached millions. For Wayfair's side, the effect was the opposite. The filing had handed them a public momentum boost. They didn't have to run a media campaign themselves. The creator community and gossip outlets were doing it for them.
Transcript for, something that was in 2 pages. I kind of get the point. And
all they had to do was feed the legal record and watch as it was amplified, reinterpreted, and spun into a story that painted them as the ones simply defending transparency. The more attention the dispute got, the more Lively's position seemed defensive, even evasive. By the end of that week, one truth had crystallized. This was no longer just a legal fight over what could and couldn't be included in court records. It had become a high-stakes war over perception.
The letter was filed following a hearing. Typically, if additional briefing is requested by the court...
The court filings were weapons. The media was a battlefield. And both sides knew that whoever controlled the story outside the courtroom might just tip the scales inside it. For many watching from the sidelines, the drama between Blake Lively, Wayfair, and the subpoenaed creators seemed like a contained, one-off battle, an isolated storm that just happened to spill into public view. But for those who had followed Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, over the years, the tactics felt strangely familiar.
Whole controversy between co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni over what happened on the set.
This wasn't the first time the couple had been linked to aggressive legal maneuvers designed to control a narrative. In fact, a pattern was beginning to emerge. Years earlier in Canada, Reynolds had been involved in an incident with a paparazzo, an event that was initially reported as a shocking accident. The story that circulated painted Reynolds as a victim, allegedly struck by a photographer's car. For years, that version went unchallenged, protected under a Canadian publication ban.
Of video footage on them, and they don't have any time to go through it. So let's go through the request because there is...
that prevented court records from being made public. But when those records finally became accessible, a very different picture emerged. According to the unsealed files, the paparazzo wasn't the aggressor at all, and the allegations against him had been exaggerated to the point of distortion. To those drawing the parallels, the similarity was hard to ignore. In Canada, the couple had benefited from laws that allowed them to keep potentially damaging court details hidden until the case was over. Now, in the United States,
Oppose Blake Lively's motion for a protective order precluding her deposition at the MSF offices,
where no such blanket ban exists, it seemed as though similar instincts were at play. Instead of leaning on legal restrictions to seal everything by default, the fight had shifted to motions, subpoenas, and strategic filings aimed at keeping certain information away from the public eye. It didn't stop there. Legal watchers recalled another case involving allegations the couple had made against individuals they claimed were stalking or threatening them. Accusations that, once examined more closely,
success of the movie made a ton of money from the success of this movie. They got a lot of back-end profits. Assuming that's true,
didn't always align with the evidence. In each instance, there seemed to be the same underlying goal: manage the narrative, protect the image, and ensure that the story the public saw was the story they wanted told. For critics, the current battle with Wayfair wasn't just about a deposition transcript. It was about whether this was part of a long-running playbook. If true, the subpoenas, the motions, and the aggressive push to strike records from view weren't anomalies. They were tactics refined over years of navigating both the legal system and the celebrity press.
Incident where Justin Baldoni supposedly sexually harassed Blake Lively. Now, I don't feel the need to tell you guys what to think.
And that realization made the stakes feel even higher. This wasn't just a skirmish in an ongoing lawsuit. It was another chapter in a much larger, carefully curated fight for control over the public record. When you strip away the legal jargon, the celebrity status, and the social media noise, what's left is a question that's far bigger than Blake Lively, Wayfair, or the creators caught in between. Who gets to control the narrative in a world where the court of public opinion is just as powerful as the court of law?
And this is not a good look for Ryan Reynolds, who is married to Blake Lively, so he is allegedly furious. And if the deposition does...
In this case, the fight hasn't been just about evidence or privacy. It's been about shaping perception, one filing, one headline, one viral post at a time. Some see Lively's actions as calculated, a way to quietly discourage anyone from discussing her case by showing just how much firepower she can bring to bear. Others believe it's simply the messy, unglamorous reality of protecting your image when you're one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. And then there are those who think both can be true.
Took notes, and I'm going to do my best to relay the actual information in here. Keep in mind, this is going to focus on Justin Baldoni's side.
That a celebrity can sincerely want to protect their privacy, while also understanding the power of using legal tools to silence, or at least slow down, critics. The speculation doesn't end there. If Wayfair's strategy continues to chip away at Lively's credibility in court filings, how will that impact the trial itself? Will judges and juries be swayed, even unconsciously, by the growing public narrative? And perhaps more importantly, will this case set a precedent, not just for celebrities, but for how far anyone can go in targeting individuals who comment on public disputes?
I need to tell you guys what to think because you're the jury. This is a courtroom. Let's just go through the evidence together. And
for now, the answers are elusive. The case is still unfolding. the motions still flying and the alliances shifting by the week. But one thing is certain. Every move from here on out will be watched, dissected, and judged. Not just by the people in the courtroom, but by millions online. And in an age where perception can dictate reality, that might just be the most important battle of all. In the end, this isn't just a courtroom drama, it's a cautionary tale about power,
showing fully both sides of it. So yeah, I'm having to turn it off.
privacy, and the price of speaking up. Blake Lively may be the headline, Wayfair may be the opponent, but the real story is about the space between public discourse and personal protection. In that space, the rules are still being written. Celebrities have the resources to push those boundaries, to test how far they can go in controlling the flow of information. Ordinary people, the content creators caught in the crossfire, are left to decide whether to fight back or quietly step away.
He is allegedly furious. And if the deposition does become public, it's over for Blake Lively. Will what the aim?
Every subpoena, every motion, every leaked snippet of testimony is more than just a legal move. It's a signal, a message to anyone paying attention about what can happen when your voice enters someone else's spotlight. Some will see that as a warning, others as a challenge. But for all the noise, one truth remains. The moment a story goes public, it stops belonging to any one person. And no matter how carefully you try to manage it, the court of public opinion will decide its own verdict. As this case moves forward, both the legal outcome and the public narrative are still in play. And in a fight where perception can be just as lethal as fact, neither side can afford to lose.